All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for checking in for another episode of Triple Play. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Brookes Bible College. We appreciate their sponsorship. If you're looking for a Bible college and you're looking to get into a biblical degree or a counseling degree, consider Brookes Bible College out of the Midwest here. One of their things is making sure you get into ministry without a lot of debt. So they're very affordable. They're accredited. So you'll get an accredited degree. You're able to go into missions. You're able to pastor a church. Average church size in America is about 75 to 100. So you're not going to be pastoring a church like that if you've got 100,000, 50,000 worth of debt, unless the church is independently wealthy. So consider Brookes Bible College, and again, can't speak highly enough of them. We appreciate them. That said,
who do we got today?
We got one of my favorite people in the whole world today. This guy has been a pillar in my life for a long time, and I'm excited to have him here today. I can never have a dull moment with John. So John Brookes, gosh, I was trying to think, when did you come to my life? Probably 20 years ago now. So roughly about 20 years ago, I first met you. I was young in the business, and just immediately loved your spirit. Your character was very evident from the get-go. I like people a lot, but I don't trust a lot of people. So I'm friendly with a lot of people, but trust usually has to be garnered over a long period of time in my life. And I easily trusted you fairly quickly because I just remember just watching how you reacted and did things in the business world, and it resonated very well with me. So that said, I am so glad that you're here today, and hopefully we'll all learn a little bit of wisdom from John Brookes. And for those who have been hearing us talk about Andy McCollum and Resource One, John is a staple, a founder, and a mentor there. So it is great to have you today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm proud to be here, Josh, with you and Scott today.
Wow.
Great.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know a lot of things, but tell our audience a little bit of where you grew up. What was your environment like? Maybe a little bit about your testimony, how you came to know the Lord, as I know you're a fellow brother in the Lord, and a little bit about where you went to high school, the good old St. Louis question. So,
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I happen to be born down in Sheryl Crow's territory in Kennett, Missouri.
oh, wow.
My parents were tenant farmers. They didn't own a farm, but they worked for the owner that's there, and they moved up to St. Louis when I was 5. And my mom and dad were very blessed. They got a job over at the Chevrolet plant. They're on Union and Natural Bridge, and then we actually moved across the river, and I grew up in Granite City, Illinois. As a young man growing up, I knew my parents. They took the 4 to midnight shift because they got 15 cents an hour more. Wow. Both of them had very limited education, maybe 4th grade and 6th grade, but they were willing to work for General Motors at that time, and that's what really provided a livelihood for us. I think you'd ask earlier, I've got 2 older sisters. I'm the baby in the family. And so with my parents going to work at 4 and getting home at midnight, I never saw them much until the weekend. So my 2 sisters really raised me, and I was able to observe them, tell tales on them, or tell them, they better take care and feed and treat me right, or I'll tell mom and dad when they get home.
You held them hostage.
I did with that. And so, growing up in Granite City, it was important for me, to find something that I could do with my friends. We used to play kick the can, or we'd run the alleys, and we would chase after sticks, things like that. But I was eventually able to find 2 sports that I played. I played baseball early in my career. Scott, not at your level or Dad's level, but at my level, it was fun, to be a second baseman. With that, I also found the sport of wrestling. And as I grew older, for me, the baseball went on the side for me. I really wasn't that good, although I did win a game one time. I think it was extra innings. The bases were loaded. I was at bat, and I got hit.
There you go.
And so, we scored the run. We didn't have any lights, so the game was over. So that's my...
Anybody else would have dodged the ball. You stood in there for your
That's
team.
my claim to fame, with that. And the other sport is where I really was blessed. Granite City is a community where wrestling, people grow up in communities where there's white collar and blue collar. We had so much industry going over. We had 3 steel mills that were pumping steel. We had A.O. Smith that was making auto frames. So our community really was gray. A lot of pollution. It was.
I was going to ask you about that. Growing up, what decade are you talking about right now?
Yeah,
Because if you go to Granite City now, it's kind of warehouses are run down. It's that riverfront's a little bit.
Yeah, it has changed. It went at one time, Scott. It was an all-American city. It got that award. I don't know what the criteria was for that, but that's probably not what it would be.
You can see the bones of the city. It's beautiful the way it's set up along that little path or along that ridge right there.
You're right, and I grew up across the power company. Again, my parents being tenant farmers, my dad was going to build a house for me to live in, so we lived in a basement where you walked in the door and went down. We were kind of like moles for years because they couldn't save enough money to build it. They couldn't afford to pay someone. And so finally the first floor got built and we got to get out of the basement and get upstairs like everyone else. But it was a wonderful city. It has a lot of great memories. I was blessed not only to go to the school system there, but to come back after college to teach and coach in the same high school. And what was unique about that, some of the teachers just set me outside of the classroom. I was always a little busy in classroom. And, of course, then when you got to sit out in the hall, you had to hide from the principals because they would walk the hall and then ask you, what were you doing out here? And I would make up some pretty good story about, so-and-so was kind of boring and with that. But going back and them making me colleagues now, teaching with them was another perspective of life. So that's a great memory that's there. And for the history of our community, the sport of wrestling has been dominant, not only here in the metro area with Missouri and Illinois so close, but really across the country. I was blessed to have a high school coach who was president of the NCAAs. And that's normally an honor for a college or university coach, but William Red Schmidt, they've actually named a wrestling tournament after him all these years. It's a holiday tournament that's there. We'd have teams come down from the Chicago area, the metro St. Louis area come over, and we would just tear arms and legs off. In that, and we were blessed to have a team that could compete at a high level. And then years later, the sport of soccer popped over. We're blessed to have Coach Gene Baker show up. He had been on an NCAA tournament team here at St. Louis U when he played in college, came over, and Granite City won the first state title in soccer and then ripped off about 6 more of those. And many of those young men were able to go on to play college sports and get some scholarships. That was the whole purpose of athletics. Get young men and women prepared to go in their future and hopefully reduce their costs and let them continue that experience that was there.
That's great. Sounds like you had your eye on good coaching early on.
I was blessed. I had good coaches all of my life growing up, with that. And of course, that's what I wanted to replicate. I actually went back and started being assistant coach there with Red Schmidt and was hoping one day to have that opportunity to be the head coach of the Granite City Warriors with that. And that didn't happen because there's things that happened in my life that changed. I got married. It's a unique story there. As a senior in high school, we just won just placed in the state tournament, third out of the schools, and a couple of years before we won a state title. So I went to a young lady's 16th birthday party. I didn't know her that well. I went there actually looking for another girl I thought I wanted to date. She was a cheerleader, and of course, it was a young wrestler weighing about 119 pounds. You had this big Letterman's jacket with your G on it with that. And so I didn't take this young lady a birthday present. I thought, you know what? I think I'll just give her a kiss. That'll be my present to her. And little did I know that kiss I gave her, we dated 4 years, and this March, we will have been married 54 years. So that's 58 years of my life. I found the right one at the right time.
That's incredible.
That
was it. You were the guy for her.
Well, she was the girl for me. And the sad story is, most men that young men, especially that have any success either academically or athletically, we tend to have a little bit of a confidence or an ego issue with our lives. I had Scott really dated most of her classmates, and she was kind of the last one in line. And she would say today, "Well, why me?" I said, because I saw in you something so pure that complimented me. You were so quiet. I was so talkative. You were so beautiful. I will not say I was beautiful nor handsome at that. So I'm definitely one of those men that has married up.
Mm.
Nice.
We all have.
All right, so you're getting married. How do you transition back to this side of the river?
Well, it's a neat story there. I'd like to just back up a little bit. As a senior in college, we got married in March. And then that was 1970. And I was very fortunate because I just won the lottery. Got one of those letters from the government. If anybody historically remember, there was a time when our government pulled out 100 ping pong balls from a jar, and they had birthdays on there. So the first 100 birthdays got a free trip to Vietnam.
I was wondering where that was going.
So I get married in March. I get this letter that I've been drafted, and now I have to report in June to Fort Campbell, Kentucky for my basic training. And I'm thinking, well, that was not part of my plan.
Did that anger you?
It didn't anger me, Scott. It scared me because many of my classmates, had joined the service. And during my years of college, they had gone to Vietnam and had not come back. And so I can look at my yearbook today, and there's X's on guys I grew up with that paid that price so we can enjoy the freedom that we all get today with that. So it didn't anger me. It did scare me. Merrick, one of my best friend actually, he said, you could put braces on your teeth, and they'll give you an exemption. That's what I'm going to do. And I thought, nah, I'm just going to use the teeth God gave me, and I'm going to pay the price. I'm not going to take off and go to Canada. I will serve the military. But I got blessed. I was able to get into a reserve unit. So I was able to spend 6 years in the service, but never have to leave home or our country with that. So even though when veterans are recognized, I did go into the service, but I don't feel like I'm the guy who should stand up. I didn't pay the price that they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your service anyways.
Was that Missouri or Illinois service, reserves? When you say reserves.
Yeah, I was in the Illinois reserves in Woodrow, Illinois that's there. And it's amazing because I was put in a unit that took care of all of the vehicles, kept the trucks and the Jeeps all running. And I knew absolutely nothing about those two areas.
Do you now?
No. All I know when it comes to vehicles is I know E and F. I better get to the gas station or I'm okay for 3 or 4 more days.
That's great.
With it. But teaching and coaching was a dream come true at my high school. With the head coach. As a young assistant coach, I got to travel across the country. I meet some of the greatest coaches that ever coached the sport of wrestling, from the great Dan Gable to the Stan Abels in Oklahoma, and you name who's who. I got to tag along. I just felt really special about that. But something happened to me later in life as I was getting ready to come age 30, is that many times, people will say, well, gosh, you got a great job. You teach 9 months out of the year. I say, yeah, but I have to eat 12. So every summer I had a summer job. We'd opened up a Central Hardware store there in Granite City. And so I went and applied for a job, and I got one of those orange jackets that said, you're an expert. And I thought, in what? You're definitely not going to put me anywhere close to tools, because you heard how much I know about cars. So they did put me in the sporting goods department, which is kind of neat. But then they'd call back and say, Coach Brookes, you probably shouldn't be throwing the football from aisle to aisle. And I thought, look, for $1.15 an hour, it's not real exciting, to do that. And then after that summer, I spent one summer with a good friend of mine, assistant coach of mine at the junior high, and we put in wells. Granite City happens to have a high water table, and people like to water their lawns or their gardens and not have to use, and pay for the water out of from their homes. And so all I knew about that, Scott, is that there was an 80-pound weight that had to be pulled, had to drive the pipe in and through the dead pan. It was there to get to the water. Now, he was smart enough to hook all electrical stuff up. And I thought, man, we're going to make $25 each after 3 days of work like that. And then finally, I did find a pretty cushy job. There was a private swimming pool over there called Paddlers. It's still there today. It's a private swimming club. We weren't able at that time to join it. We just didn't have the income available. So I was invited to be the manager. I thought, well, good. I can go to the pool. My wife can come to the pool. And at that time, we had 2 little girls. I was the teacher coach that had 2 girls, no boys. And so I did go to a lot of dance recitals, a lot of ballet things, a lot of things that little girls do, and I'm very thankful for those two little girls. They've become great young women today with that. But I didn't get that chance to teach and coach my own son. With that grandson, I've got one. Yeah. He didn't like sports either. So, but he does like, he is a Swiftie. I can tell you, he's got every poster, he's got every record. He can tell you when things were created. If he knew as much about his homework as he does the history of Taylor Swift and other young artists, the kid would be a genius. So I'm hoping I can funnel that somewhere.
There you go.
Get into music.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he can get into music.
Yeah. You never know. Never know. So how did that culminate to you? Obviously there's a transition from the teaching world to what you do today. What did that happen? So
what happened, we were fortunate. There was a company called Franklin Life Insurance Company out of Springfield, Illinois, our state capital there. They were one of the few companies that would allow teachers to try another career without quitting. And my wife had stopped working when we had the girls with that, and I was teaching, coaching, student council, Letterman's Club, teaching a CCD class to young people in the community, being as active as I could, because that's who we were, as a family. And so every summer, instead of the central hardware or putting in, sprinkler systems for folks or trying to work at the swimming pool, my wife said, well, hey, there's a gentleman who wants to talk to you about selling life insurance. And I thought, that's got to be the most ridiculous thing in the world. Why would I want to sell life insurance? We have some. Matter of fact, my first year teaching, the school board principal, kind of a neat meeting there. He met me, congratulated me on becoming a teacher in the Granite School System. He said, by the way, most teachers will not have an adequate pension. So they will start a second pension as they're going through their career. And I thought, well, that makes sense, to do that. And the sad thing is, he did say, and I am also on the school board, and I'll be voting on your job the next year or two. And I thought, I knew exactly what he was saying. Small town politics. You either play the game or you get tagged out. And so I said, sure, I'd be glad to help you. And it's funny because his wife was the first secretary at the elementary school. Couldn't even get into high school because jobs at that time, because of the Vietnam War, you had a teaching certificate, you got a deferment. So I first started out teaching 6th grade. And then I went to the junior high and ended up at the high school. But during that whole time, really my purpose was to teach and coach young men and to be involved, in their lives with that. And so there was a time when someone said, it was actually 1977, I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take a summer class and see if I have any interest in this area here. I said yes, and later on I said no. But a year later, Bill Terrell was the gentleman's name. He was a general agent in town. He'd been a basketball coach, so he had an athletic background as well as a business background with that. And the other part I saw firsthand, his daughter, Tammy Terrell, at that time was president of my student council. Boy, did she show leadership skills. She said, we're going to open up school and have somebody jump out of an airplane on our football field. I said, Tammy, school district's not going to let us do that. Well, you didn't know Tammy Terrell. She never knew that you couldn't do things because she did do that. And then her brother, Greg Terrell, Greg played baseball and football for us there at Granite. He was in the vice president. So he was vice president in the Letterman's Club. So I got to see the leadership of how these two young people were put together with great role models with their mom and dad. With that, Greg went on to Missouri, got a degree in theology, and ended up in soap operas. Don't know how those two things transition. That's funny. I met him in New York City, him and my two girls. And of course, at that time, he had his stage name. He was Terrell Anthony. That's what he is still today here in Missouri. And he was Rusty Ryan and on one of these soap programs here. And so kids got a picture of him. And I said, Greg, how do you handle this environment? Because I understand, you're being flown all around the country. You open up shopping centers. You're there with all kind of beautiful women and all kind of temptations. And he just said, I needed to make sure my faith was solid enough to help me go through these situations and those temptations that life gives you. So I started in 1978. with Bill Terrell and the Franklin Life Insurance Company, and I signed a contract, Scott. You probably remember when you signed your first contract?
Yeah.
April 1st. So every April 1st, and this is my 46th year of practice coming up, I think, gee, is this for real? Do I have to go back in teaching and coaching, or do I get to keep this contract? Well,
Cool.
I've been blessed. I've been able to build a practice and build an organization. And more importantly, I think the organization built me. They helped me go from that high-powered, energetic teacher and coach involved in wrestling in his school system. Matter of fact, I get accused by many of my peers. They say, you seem to really enjoy coming here to school. I said, why wouldn't you? Well, many of them would start school, in early August, and they start counting the days till Thanksgiving. They would count the days to Christmas. They'd count the days to Easter break. And I said, you know what? You can't fool these kids. They're too doggone smart. And their instinct is, if you're not happy and excited to be here, they're probably not happy to be in your class. Like, I doubt the school district will pay us just to show up if the kids decide not to come to school. So we ought to get engaged in their lives and make a difference. And that's one of the things that intrigued me about the Franklin Life Insurance Company. It allowed me to try a new career. So in baseball, I felt like I could steal second base, but keep my foot still on first.
That's nice. That'd be nice.
So they couldn't throw me out.
Redo, retry over. That's funny.
And obviously you found success, right?
I did. I was blessed. I had success, and I attribute that to really growing up in a community that knew me as a young man, as a young teacher, as a young coach, because I simply, in those 10 years, we had about 700 graduates a year. So that's pretty simple math for me. That's 7,000 people. They didn't have to like me, but at least they knew me. And I think the parents, when I was involved in their kids, whether I was sponsoring somebody in a choir or going to a soccer state tournament, to be a chaperone there, or chaperoning a dance, or being involved in the football, taking tickets, or whatever it might be, they knew there was a real interest in caring for their kids. And so that's one of the questions they asked me. Well, why would you leave education if all those things were being met? I left because of the fact that I could form some relationships with some of those young people and have them, forever. And some of my first clients in 1978 are still with me today.
Wow.
46 years later, they're obviously teachers and other young people that I'd have that have grown up. I think of Dr. Rocky Lapardis, a dentist out in the Eureka area who wrestled for me, and his brother Rodney, who's a physician, and there was another brother, Randy. We seem like I have a lot of families. Scott, just like your family was all involved, in baseball, with that. And so that was the fun thing of watching these young men, these young women grow up and become the outstanding citizens, that we have today in our communities. And so Franklin allowed me to do that. And so, I had instant success. I'd go into a household and we were taught a single need presentation. Guys, I can remember it just like yesterday. It's like riding a bike. I can give it to you today. Because when we went to class to learn it, we said we can learn it one of two ways. Learn it word for word or learn it verbatim. And I said, I think that's the same. And then a gentleman that was providing some training during that time, he says, 50% of the people in our business you can't trust. The other 50% are crooks. And I would say, Bill, I think that's 100%. Hopefully we're not going to be one of those. But I want to use a word today that might confuse some people, but it's what I felt then in 1981. I felt like I was on a crusade. As a young educator, I realized a survey that was published by the Social Security Administration that said out of 100 average Americans, the average person from 18 to 25 got their first job. Their income increased as they reached age 50 or 55. It leveled off and it stopped. And from their first paycheck to their last paycheck that they'd have, they made about $550,000 in their lifetime. One person from the survey was rich. Two people were well off, but 97 out of 100 people were dead or dead broke. And I said, okay, if this is true, we need to be teaching this to people. And so that's why I was on a crusade to teach people the importance of creating a habit of saving. And even today, I'll be 76 in August. After 46 years of practice, I still think the basic thing is to get people in a habit of saving and accumulating money, for the purpose of using it for their own needs and their family's needs, but more important for a legacy, for it to go back with that. Because the best investment I can give you after 46 years, it's not an investment in our market. It's the investment in people's lives. If you spend time to share your time, your talent, and your treasures, God's going to reward you more than you could ever imagine with that. And so one of the things that caused me, after a year, I thought, well, I can teach and coach. I can run this business at night. I just got my master's degree. I was so excited about that. And so I saw, here's a 26 pay period in a year. And I think I got $15 a pay increase. It just didn't seem right to pay the price for more education for less to pay. So we will say today, we do a lot of webinars for educators. We've been in that market in Illinois with our TRS system, here in Missouri in the PSRS, and we've got a team in Kansas that does the capers over there. We believe it still is an occupation that is overworked and underpaid. Now, if I had a right to sign a bill, I know we just signed one today to send $99 billion somewhere around the world. I'd pay these young men and women who make an imprint on our kids each and every day and make a difference for what our future looks like.
Well, that'd be nice if we started thinking like that as a country.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. So you obviously went on to do very, very well. I know there's a little more into your organization, though. So, at what point did you realize that it really was taking off? So,
most of the young people today, and we still do. We stopped recruiting about 15, 20 years ago, because there's a difference of recruiting people to a business opportunity as compared to interviewing and selecting them. Be the same thing, Scott. You know what it's like. They're going to announce they're going to have tryouts. You go try out, and somebody looks to see, what skill set do you have, and in what category do you fit in with that. Years ago, we would license almost 100 people a year here in our Illinois and Missouri area. And I would pray that one person would truly understand the commitment it makes to build a practice from scratch. Nobody gave anybody anything, with that. And we were fortunate during the years 78, 79, and 80. We built the largest teacher-coach agency in the country.
Wow.
We simply identified the influential leaders in each school system that we had interaction with and went and recruited them. We would tell them, hey, Scott, you're on a hit list. Now, if that was Chicago or New York, that'd be a bad list to be on. But our list in Illinois and Missouri was a good list. It was people who were desirable, but not available to come into our business. Because the industry, many companies will hire 1,000 people a month. They know they're not going to stick or stay. They come in and sell their friends and their family, and they're out of the business, and now those clients become orphans. Well, no one wants to be an orphan. So the next person comes in, and he sells his friends and family, and he fails. Matter of fact, the industry statistics are, in 5 years, there's only a 15% survival rate that stay in this business. The other 85% have come and gone. They're good people with good intentions, but they're not able to take care of the responsibility that comes with that. So in 78, 79, 80, we were fortunate, Josh, to find these key players, both sides of the river, and built the largest teachers coach agency in the country. I mean, it was well known in the business arena with that. And because of that, I did something that most of my peers said in 1980. I resigned being a business owner. And think about what I just said. I got all this experience. We were fortunate to have won 2 national awards during that time. I go from 0 income to a 6-figure income, and everything is perfect. But I still was curious. I was not satisfied with what this industry could offer. So I left an organization and had an invitation to become a superintendent in the home office of Franklin Life Insurance. Back to setting goals, as you've done in athletics and you've done with your business and your own personal life. I had a goal. I was going to be 31 years of age. I had a goal to be president of an insurance company. The current president had been a part-timer. He'd gone to law school, and used that experience to work his way up to be president. And that president did well enough that he took Franklin Life and married American Brands, and those two became a phenomenal conglomerate. Now you got Titleist Golf, you got Case Cutlery, I hate to say Jim Beam Distillery and Case Knives, but you had all kinds of companies. You had the American Tobacco Company. And here we were, an insurance company that rate people who smoke and drink. So figure that one out.
Still.
So 1984, I realized that dream was not going to become a reality. I did go as a superintendent. I left the company 3.5 years later as a vice president. The state of Missouri was open, and each predecessor could pick someone. And since I had some history here, and that's one of the benefits of going back home. Sometimes they say you can't go back home. Well, maybe not to Granite City. But I could come back home to the state of Illinois and Missouri that I knew really intimately with that. Took the group here. They were like the 36th largest organization in the Franklin. There was about 50 organizations, I think, across the country. With that, we were blessed to end up the second or third largest, in our tenure. And it wasn't me. It was all about us. As you know, you don't spell team with an I in it. It's got, it's a team because together everyone achieves more with that. But in 1984, Cheryl and I left the home office of Springfield, Illinois. We had 2 girls at that time. We had our 3rd daughter that was being born. I was actually going to be introduced at a meeting here in St. Louis, and Cheryl's water started to bust. And for those of you that have children, and both you have that means you better get to the hospital. Well, the little girl didn't come then. She came about 6 weeks later. And when she came, she didn't live. One of those times when the umbilical cord was tied around her little neck as she was delivered, and she wasn't. But I did get to hold her. And so I wanted our 2 little girls got to hold her because we wanted them to know, hey, you have another sister. She's just gone ahead. She's gone to heaven with that. So here I am making a career change as a vice president of a large insurance company, coming back home to an organization that really a lot of people were offered to come to St. Louis and build a business, but they said, no, we don't think there's really anything there. Well, everything was here. The right people, the right opportunity to do that. And really one of the first recruits we had, he just finished his 40th year in practice with me, Dr. Paul Funkhauser. Paul was professor of chemistry at Math McHenry College. He was 36 years of age with that. He's got, like you, he got drafted to play in the NBA, by the Bulls and the Cavaliers. He got injured. Of course, if you're injured as a professional athlete,
kind of useless.
You're just not here with that. But as we talked to Paul about coming into this business, I remember his wife folding her hands, and his mom thinking, now, wait a minute. My son went to Purdue. He's got a PhD in chemistry and math, and you want him to do what? Here's the key. Paul got involved, got some education, got some learning, and found a calling. Now, we didn't have our phones with text messages then or Instagram. And so Paul said, I think I'm going to talk to my dad. I think I'm going to make a career change. The president of the college said, why don't you just take a sabbatical? Paul said, I can't do that. If I'm going to make this decision and I feel called, I've got to follow what God's asking me to do. And I'm thankful he did, because even Carol Funkhauser, 40 years later, still folds her hands, but she's got us in between them. And so I've been blessed to have that brother grow up with me during that time. He's enjoying the fruits of his business, with that, on the Illinois side, with that. And the important part, I'm an extrovert, he's an introvert, and what a great marriage it was. Paul could look through the microscope, Scott, and look at everything that was highly detailed. I could look through the telescope and tell you how big it was going to be. I could tell you why we were going to do things, Josh. I just didn't. My gift wasn't to figure out how. That's where the partnership and the teamwork worked really well, for us.
That's cool.
That's really, really cool.
And you're still doing it today.
Yep, still doing it today. Matter of fact, most of my peers have already sold their practices, have gone on to do something different. And I like to, Josh has heard me tell this story. I said, well, I think Noah was 120 when he got that text message to go build that ark. So I figured, maybe 50 years left. I don't know. But I do enjoy, that's why today I'm still a teacher, I'm still a coach, I'm still a counselor. And more importantly, it wasn't from what I learned from a textbook, it was what I learned from the Bible. Our Lord, of course, was a teacher without a degree. We know he's called a wonderful counselor, that's there. And I don't know how much, I've never called him the coach, but I'm sure we would have listened.
Hey, Coach, what do you think?
Yeah, well, yes, sir, we'll do that.
I don't think he'd mind that.
Yeah, so those are the things that drive me today. I get up and I get to be involved with young people. We've always taken educators that want to make career changes, as we talked about earlier. I love college graduates, and most organizations do not want people right out of school. They want those young people to go try 1, 2, or 3 careers and see the opportunities that were promised that are now a failure, to where, they're looking for something. I'm saying if I can get the right person at the right time, they get a longer career than those I get later in life. So college graduates, educators, and you think of the acronym ACE, and accountants. Josh, you're where we used to have the largest group of accountants in the entire country under contract. Those men and women work extremely hard, too many hours for the small amount of pay that they're paid. But once they realize, they open up their practice, and they can now put on a hat as the financial advisor. They can look at those 1040s, look at interest, dividends, capital gains. They can see what's on Schedule B that people are paying additional on taxes, and they can give tax strategies that can pay them phenomenal for their experience. And so that's why at 76, we're still playing the game. I'm hoping that we get the gift to play it every day until we realize, no, we get a calling and we need to do something different.
Yeah.
Right.
So your name has changed over the years, though. So you went from Franklin Life. How did that continue to grow? Because I know at one point you were part of AIG, right?
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. The nice thing, we still see this in today's industries. Eric, I was just reading something this morning before I got ready to go to the office. LPL, that's our current broker dealer. It is the largest broker dealer in our industry, with over 22,000 independent business owners. With that, they just brought an organization aboard that's got $100 billion they're going to bring with them. And so Franklin Life, Bill Alley, the president at that time, found American General in Houston, and so put that marriage together, made us bigger with that. And in the early 90s, Scott, a guy you'll know, he did their TV ads for him. Joe Torre, was a spokesperson for American General at that time. AIG out of New York bought American General. So you'll see some people have service from Franklin Life, some will have American General, some will have AIG with that. And so we never changed to lose anything. Remember, years ago, the Wall Street Journal wrote an article about these Franklin, quote, associates. He said, they just seem to be so doggone loyal. Well, we still think loyalty is a pretty good part. Matter of fact, my good friend, Dr. John Maxwell, who teaches leadership, said, if you don't have loyalty, you don't have anything. And I think about that, and that's the important part that's there. And so as we were there with that, we were blessed. We were the largest producers on the life insurance side. With AIG, American General, we were the largest producers on the security side. We had everything going except the system was broken. When your system's broken in our business, you got to find some place. Like I always say, most of these large corporations are like a cruise ship. They're just moving along. Takes them a while to turn. Well, if you're a self-employed business owner, you better be in a PT 109 boat. You better flip that thing quick and get moving in the other direction. You want to be causing change, not waiting till changes happen with that. And so we were fortunate as AIG decided not to repair some of the issues that they had internally, is that we were looking out for another place to call home. Another place, really, the broker dealer really processes your business, keeps you in compliance, does an awful lot of due diligence. So when you're marketing a security, you can feel pretty doggone safe that it's the right thing, for the consumer. And so we left 2006. We'd read a book called Engineering the Corporation, and the book was basically all about it was pioneers and settlers. You send the pioneers out to see if it's safe before the settlers go with that. And so a small group in Kansas City went to National Planning Corporation out of Santa Monica, California, And after a year later, they said everything they've said is true. Because many times, the challenges we have in our industry, there's outstanding salespeople with great persuasive skills, is that they'll start with a 6-inch fish story. When they get done, that thing's grown to 12, 18. It's the largest thing in the world. Well, we'd like to hold ourselves accountable and say, if we start with the truth, why don't we end with the truth? We don't need to expand it. It'll work for us. And so 120 of us left AIG, which is the largest group of advisors to walk from one company to another. We were very transparent. Nothing was hidden. Wasn't anything behind the door. We were communicating with the top executives of what we were doing with that. And so we were able to do that without getting one of these cease and desist letters from attorneys that says stop. And so people from the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, we all moved to NPC at that time. And then we were there until really 2017. Then the 800-pound gorilla came in again. LPL bought National Planning Corporation. And then we had a choice. You've heard me say earlier, our choice was to stay or to go. As independent business owners, you can put your business anywhere you want. So my attitude has always been, let's don't put ourselves for sale. I think that's the wrong thing to do. Let's watch the movie and then we can be critics. Well, from 2017 to now, we're still here, there, and very blessed to have an owner who invests just millions and millions of dollars in technology and systems to not only help our practices, but help our clients look at ways to solving their issues on trying to retire honorably.
That's excellent.
That was great.
Yeah.
You brought that full circle. That's good.
He did. He brought the business life full circle, but along the way, you've always been coaching and mentoring. I still run into people everywhere that have had an influence of John Brookes in their lives, even those who maybe left underneath your wing and have done other things. You know, always a smile. Anytime we bring up John Brookes, always a smile. Always, oh yeah, he was great. He really coached me and helped me to get where I am today. Mm-hmm. So. Definitely a legacy there, too.
Yeah, well, thank you. One of the ones that you say that, another Scott Highmark, I didn't even know the young man. You know, I heard he was an internship years ago with Anheuser-Busch, and I thought, well, that's going to be a slam dunk. They're going to take this young man. He had been on 2 state championship teams, one in baseball, I think, and one in basketball, and he was at St. Louis U. So I happened to go to one of the churches where he was giving his personal testimony. I listened to this young man, and I watched him interact. That's what we do as coaches. We watch people interact and just see what kind of skills they have. And he stopped and took his time. He is very patient with that. Matter of fact, as we talked to him, he said, well, I'm going to go to Anheuser-Busch. I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm probably going to set up these things at bars or places like that, you know, and put up all of their hardware. That I said, is that who you are? So what's it like the next day after you set up one of these events? He said, well, some of the people are still there at the bar that I saw the night before when we put up all the marketing things that's there. I said, I don't think that's you with that. And so I was fortunate enough to get to talk to him, got to talk to his dad, Duncan Highmark, and I said, if you take a look at this opportunity, we'll help you find a place that we think you can make a difference with your life. You're already doing that. Some place to where your faith and your family can be too important. Merrick, I have a personal letter that he wrote me years ago because he came to our organization, as you said. Later on, he left. He left because we didn't have something that he needed, and that's okay. You know, it's like if you ever loved before, you'll never know how much you're loved until you're gone. What people think of you. Well, today he's done a phenomenal job. He's built Mosaic here in town. He's well respected in our community, and he's impacted just hundreds and thousands of lives because he's willing to take that risk to get the reward. But I do remember credit. He was still trying to make it in the NBA. I said, you be our recruiting coordinator. You just recruit people because of who you are. We'll build a team together. And so one of the first guys he recruited was a guy named Bones. Bones was a reliever at St. Louis University. Bones, I think, broke an all-time record there. I said, if you break an all-time record in relief, does that mean you're winning or losing?
Depends on the stat.
Yeah. Well, John Moriarty was the young man's name that's there, and everybody went to Bones's dorm because he was just bright, just smart with that. And so Scott did bring, John here with us. John built an awful lot of business. He was kind of that son that I didn't have, I got a chance to put my handprint on. I always say as a parent or a grandparent, take a little bit of credit and a little bit of criticism, but don't take all of either. It's God's desire in these young people's life, and they're willing, to follow His ways. That's where the credit really goes. But both John and Scott and even Stephen Rhodes. Stephen Rhodes started with us as a young teacher, in the Brentwood school system. He liked what he was doing. He's worked with educators. He knew those real well. We used to put seminars on for Ladue and some of the other school systems, that were there. And then his practice grew up to where he moved it up to another level. And today I think he's able to help some of the outstanding small business owners and professional athletes, with that. And that goes full circle because today, you talked to it earlier, Andy McCollum. This is Andy, I think, 13th year in practice. As he finished his football career, we were attending church together, and I would tease him. I'd say, Andy, now it's time to go get a real job. You've had fun all your life, 15 years in the NFL. Nobody lasts that long. What's the average career? 2.5, 3 years, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
he had a very long career in the NFL.
And he said, well, I'm not from Missouri. I said, Andy, you don't have to be. You happen to have a Rams jersey, and for your 9 years here in town, everybody knows you. More importantly, I know you. You're a man of character. You're a man of great competency. I didn't understand, because it's a different sport in football than it was in wrestling, that your center has to be one of your smartest guys in the team, because he's got to know everybody's scheme before the play goes. Or if he sees a defense change, he's got to be able to relay that, to his teammates with that. And so Andy has been that rock solid managing partner that we have at Resource One. And it's always fun with him because we have these themes. We said, we first said from the Blues Brothers, let's get the band back together. And the other thing I said, well, why don't we create the greatest show on turf again? Except we're not going to be running footballs. We'll be running businesses with that. So the fun thing is that having Andy here as a partner, but the real enjoyment this May, his son Jake will graduate, and Jake is fully licensed to come in business with his dad. So to see a father-son come in and do something as you've done probably with your dad in baseball with that, or you've done with your own kids in the Awana programs and everything you've supported, from them in the basketball, Josh is wonderful. That's the blessings.
Yeah, it's cool. It really is. It's fun. It's fun, and I saw that. I was excited that he's doing that. So he'll do very well too. And he's newly married. So Jake just got married not so long ago.
Yeah,
So,
he'll have some motivation.
oh yeah.
Anytime you say I do, that means I will.
Amen. Amen.
That's great.
So, what are some of the secrets that have helped you become successful through the years? What are some of the key things that you've picked up that have helped you along the way? Obviously, you mentioned the Bible, and I know that foremost is important in your life. But is there other keys that have inspired you or helped you along the way be a better business owner and a better coach and a better family man?
Well, you alluded to the initial thing. Of course, the Bible is the foundation of my learning that I have there. But I was taught years ago. I was fortunate at 1979 to run into the gentleman that ran the largest organization in our company, Don George. So I had a personal mentor with me for over 30 years. And because I had Don there, two things that I needed. I didn't have a father in my life, as I said earlier. Remember, Dad went to work at 4 and saw him. He came home at midnight, so I'd see him on the weekend. I don't think he ever saw a wrestling match I was in or one I even coached because of our schedules. And my father, as I grew up, the things I was challenged with is that, well, my dad could fish, he could hunt, he could paint. I couldn't do any of those things. So we didn't have anything in common. Except I could hold the squirrels as he wanted to skin them. And I thought, oh, this isn't any fun. And do we have to eat this for dinner tonight? I don't want it. With it. So Don George was not only a mentor, but he was like a father to me. And I know early parts of my life, as I probably told a story, remember where that 6-inch story went to 9 or 12? He probably knew I was telling a tale, but he was wise enough not to call me on the carpet. He just continued to be a good role model, talk about the importance. Then I'd see at national meetings where he could get up in front of 2,000 or 3,000 people and give a message and have it based on biblical principles, and the executives would just let him do it. because of the success he had with that. And so I'd say if you can find a mentor, that's important. They can accelerate and share with you the successes and the failures, that you're going to experience with that. And the other part is the education. I'm still that teacher. That's why I brought you some books. There's a servant leader book there, by by Blanchard. Ken Blanchard wrote The 1 Minute Manager, made him famous, and he ran into Phil Hodges. So the difference is, Ken Blanchard became successful, and Phil Hodges challenged him and said, well, why don't you become significant? There's a big difference between those words, successful and significant in your life. Mother Teresa was significant with her life. So that's where you take a look at that. Now Discover Your Strengths. I was fortunate to be on a program with Dr. Marcus Buckingham decades ago, and he came out with his book, Now Discover Your Strengths. It's not your talent, it's your strengths. And so every new person we interview, we ask them to take a strength finder test. You can go online and find it. There's 34 strengths that him and another psychologist have discovered that tell you what your sweet spots and who you are. And then from that, I learned you need to delegate everything but your genius. And so I remember taking those 34 strengths, and the first one that came up for me was ideation. And that definition talked about a person who has all kinds of ideas, who likes to put teams together. My wife read that, and she said, that's you. Mm-hmm. So I said, I always have a lot of ideas on why we need to do something. I need my teammates to pull it off on how we're going to do it with that. The funny thing is that Buckingham grew up, Scott and Josh, as a stutterer, and so people made fun of him. Well, today, as a business consultant, I think someone said they pay him about $55,000 an hour. So you don't have to work too many hours if you're really good at what you're doing. But that's been a very important book that I've shared with people. So we teach the importance about education. We either say you're green and growing or you're going to ripen and rot. Which one do you want to be? So we're challenging ourselves to learn things every day. To help us, as a matter of fact, Don George, my mentor, one that taught us about these 4 F's. And these 4 F's are all part of how he grew up as a person. In his graduating yearbook, underneath his name, he was called the Shadow. Because no one knew. Matter of fact, when everybody's getting ready to graduate as a senior, I think the story he tells is they had to be called in the office to decide whether to let him graduate or not.
They didn't know.
But the impact that he's made, I've been to major business meetings with him. He's passed away. He's still left his imprint here on earth with the men and women. We talk about people change thousands of lives, probably hundreds of thousands of lives he's changed. We'd go to a meeting and maybe it would start at 8:30 in the morning and end at 4:30 and then it'd be a dinner. But there'd be a knock on his door about 6:30. Men would come in and bring their business plans. He would listen, mentor them, give them some information, and to disciple with them, and then give his testimony about Jesus Christ. And about 2 or 3 in the morning, we decided to go to bed. Because why? 8:30 was coming again. He wasn't going to miss a meeting, but he used his platform of his vocation where he could share God's word.
That's awesome. Well, you do the same thing. You're not shy about your faith. I love that. I love your slogan for your company right now. It's up in front. What does it say?
Well, our mission is to serve people. Our purpose is to serve God. And so we say if we're serving God's people, then we're doing what we're supposed to do. We changed that. Matter of fact, you mentioned to it earlier. When I started, it was called the Greater St. Louis Region. Okay? And the gentleman that was running the organization was one of the most outstanding salesmen in any company. He had over 900 sales in 1 year. That's not group sales where you sign up 50, 60. That's going into households, with that. He had a work ethic that was just phenomenal with that. The problem with that is that if a strength take goes too far, it becomes a weakness. There's no balance. But Don George brought these 4 F's. He brought his faith, your family, your fitness, and your finances to the table. And I said, well, let's add a 5th one. Let's have some fun with that. And so that's how he lived his life. That's how he ran his organization. Minnesota and St. Louis, the values of the Midwest were basically the same. He spent an awful lot of time down here as a guest, teacher to many of our folks in our organization. And like I said, left an impact, on this world.
Wow. I like that too. The 5 F's, not 4 F's. Mm-hmm. But I like that a lot. And I like your thing. So who we are and who we serve.
Well, once we went from the greater St. Louis region, we became Gateway region. And I had a nice collage, made. So we go to business meetings, we put this banner up. And so I had a baseball player, happened to be left-handed. All right. Wasn't Dad, but it was Stan Musial as an example. Had a picture of Mark Twain. Mark Twain, obviously famous storyteller and writer here in our area. I had a picture of Busch Stadium. I had a picture of the Arch. Things that would recognize our area with it. What was amazing was our territory, because you had certain territories you could do business in. We only had kind of the western part of Illinois, those few counties, and about half of Missouri. So our population wasn't very large. But we learned to go deep into a market, hiring the right people who could impact it. Like if you get the best teacher coach you have in there, Katie bar the door. There's not another company that can perform those men or women who impacted those communities by teaching and coaching, those kids, with that.
That's great.
And so Gateway Reaching became Gateway Financial Resource. We were one of the first groups to be innovative to make a transformation. Remember, we started out as an insurance agency. Then we transformed into a full-service financial services with that. And from Gateway Financial Resources, all right, we became My Strategic Partners for about 5 years. And in that partnership that formed, it got broken up. It didn't work with that. And then as it was happening, it was Dr. Paul Funkhauser, along with Andy McCullum, along with some other advisors. We said, what is a new branding name? Branding your business is like opening up a can of soda. If that soda is set there for 2 or 3 days, it's what?
A little flat.
It's flat, all right? You have to pop that lid and make sure it's fresh all the time. So Resource One, we said, what is going to be there long after we're all gone? So if you look at our logo, it's got a 1 in the middle. You only need one resource in your life. You need your Heavenly Father with that. And yet in the early 90s, our group of educators created this integrated resource network. We make sure we examine your wills and your trusts. We look at your insurance. We look at your investments. We look at your mortgages. That's where, Josh, you played a very important part. You became part of our group that we could market to folks so we could give them full service. And we look at taxes. Even taxes today is the most critical thing that people look at when they're putting a plan together. It's not how much money you make, how much money you can keep with that. And so I've said for years ago, guys, we have to stop financial planning. It doesn't work. Remember the initial survey, 1 rich, 2 well-to-do, 97 dead or dead broke? We have to do lifestyle planning. What do you want to do for the next 10 years in your life? What's important to you? So we do more values-based conversation. We're more concerned today about you, your values, and what it is that we can match up and support. And if we built the right rapport, and rapport is how you build trust, we always say, look, if someone catches your attention, I stole this from WashU, it's the junior high dance. Boys on one side of the gym, girls on the other. And you hit your buddy and say, hey. And your buddy says, there's no way she's going to date you. All right? You don't know if you don't ask, right? So if you take time to talk, you build trust. When you build trust, then you can write a prescription. Years ago, we had a single need presentation. One size fits all. It doesn't work today. One size fits one, and you better make sure there's a complete examination. If you write a prescription without an examination, now you're practicing malpractice, suitability, issues you have to deal with. So that's why we do comprehensive planning. We have attorneys involved. We have our risk managers involved. We have our investment people, what we specialize. We have our mortgage people. We do debt consolidation and our tax planning. And more importantly, we realize in Proverbs, it talks about generation skipping. If your kids aren't responsible enough, you just skip them and pass that wealth on to the next generation if they're prepared for it.
That's good.
It was good.
I think we've come to a good landing point. We've had a great discussion.
Yeah.
If we give everything away at once, there's no reason to come back. See, we got to have John come back. I'm still like my wheels are still turning from all the things he said. So
Aside from getting to know you better, I think people listening, every time they hear that Resource One now, they're going to have a greater picture of you and what services you can offer and how that can benefit their life.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think it was great.
yeah, and so well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody else for listening in. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Don't forget to support those that support us, like Resource One and Andy McCall and his team, plus John here at 636-458-1798. Don't forget CS with CS Design, who created our website and our intros and outro. You can get them at 573-436-3717. And Jeff Earhart with State Farm Agency. And you can reach him at 314-821-JEFF or 5333. We appreciate all those guys and their sponsorship and help. And with that, we'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming, John. Thank you.
You're safe.